Good morning, everybody. This is Beginning Excel 2016 training. We normally do this kind of hands-on, and we have you do the exercise with us, but in this situation, we're going to kind of do a show and go. There in the chat, there is a link to the document that I'm going to be working on, so later on, if you would like to go back and re-watch this video, you will be able to re-watch the video and also do some of the things that I've shown you. Taking a look at some of the topics that we're going to cover, well, I guess first off, I should say my name is Chris Edmondson. For those of you that don't know, I'm the Director of Educational Technology for Clovis Unified. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you'll get a lot out of this, and I hope everybody is safe and healthy in this time. Taking a look at some of the topics that we're going to try to cover today, you can see on the screen we're going to kind of start off very slow, and we're going to take a look at the ribbon and how to insert worksheets and talking about rows and columns and how to format cells. We're going to try to get into autofill, which is a very important topic with Excel. We'll talk about saving as other formats. Formulas, we'll just touch on formulas a little bit. Sorting and filtering, it's one of those topics that if you can really understand this, it can save a lot of time when you're trying to do some work. If there's time, we'll get into freezing Pane and also mail merge, but this training normally goes 2 hours, so we only have an hour, so we're going to see what we can get to. But in this format, we may be able to cover a lot more than what I normally do in an hour. We do have a chat going, so if there's any questions that you would like to add in the chat, please go ahead and do that. I have a co-presenter by the name of Karina Cantrell, and she will stop me every now and then and ask any questions that come up. Feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. We would prefer you to keep your mic muted, but at the end, if there are any questions or anything like that, I'll be happy to kind of go over some things with you. Okay? Again, thank you for joining us. So first off here, this is an Excel spreadsheet that basically we pulled kind of fake data out of our student information system. And you can see that Excel is made up of columns and it's made up of rows. And if you look at this, the columns are labeled with letters, A, B, C, D, and so on. And if you keep going out, you'll notice that when you get to Z, then it starts with AA, AB, AC. And if you keep going out, you can see that it will still go out there quite a long ways, and you can have a very large Excel spreadsheet. Coming back, you can take a look at the rows. The rows are numbered, starting with 1, and if I scroll down here, you can see that there are thousands of rows in Excel. And one of the things to understand about Excel is these are made up of cells, and each little box is a cell, and each cell has a address, and that's kind of important so that you kind of know where you are. So for example, if I want to go and click into this cell right here where it says 8249 North Backer Avenue, what you'll notice is that this actually has an address, and the address is the where the column and the row intersects. So this is in column C and row 4. So this cell right here where this information is it at C4. And if I'm not real sure about that, Excel kind of gives me a hint and tells me what cell I've clicked into up in this little box right here. So this is C4. If I click into this cell right here, this would be A7. And again, you can see up here is the cell A7. So again, Excel is divided up into columns and rows. If you take a look at the ribbon, and this might be a little bit difficult for you to see on your screen, but the ribbon in Excel, there are multiple tabs across the top. And I may actually have some more tabs than what you normally would have. But everybody has the Home tab. And on the Home tab, there are a number of different things that are available for you to do in Excel. You can start with this area right here, which is cutting and pasting or copying. This right here is kind of like what you have in Word for fonts. You can change the different fonts if you want. You can change the size of the text if you want. You can bold, you can italicize, you can underline. This right here allows you to put a border around a cell, and you can notice I can have a bottom border, a top border, a left border, a right border, and so on. I tend to use this one a lot, all borders, and what that does is if I highlight some data and I click on all borders, you'll notice now that all of that stuff has borders around each of the cells that I've done. One of the nice things about Excel, and this is also for Word, is it has the ability to use shortcut keys. And one of the most popular shortcut keys that I use a lot is something called Control-Z. So you hold down the Control button, and then you hit Z. And basically what that does is it's the undo button. So it actually undid what I just did. And if you kind of click on Control-Z, Control-Z, it will take you back to all of the way back to when you started with this Excel document if you wanted to do that. Moving over to a little bit to the right here, you can have, this is what's called fill color. And what that does is it will actually put a background color in that cell. The next one over is text color. You can change the text color if you want. So notice I made that red. If I keep going over, this is alignment. And we're going to show you that you can center this. You can left justify, you can right justify, but you can also justify it up and down. And that's what these are for up here. You can change the way that the text lines up. This is kind of cool. I can actually change this and angle this clockwise, and notice now that my text is going kind of at an up angle. So I'm going to hit Control-Z and undo that. Wrap text and merge and center we'll get to. Number formatting we'll get to also. Conditional formatting we'll do. Inserting and deleting and formatting. These are all inserting cells and rows and columns. Also autofill for editing and so on. You also have insert, and they have in the more advanced class we teach pivot tables. There's page layout. There's formulas. There's data. And these all have a number of different topics that you can do in Excel. You'll notice I have a developer tab. You can actually do some scripting, and it allows you to write little codes or little programs that will work specifically in your Excel document. Okay. So if you notice here, we have a document, and we have, well, this is called a worksheet. And you'll notice that when you open up Excel, usually you'll get 3 worksheets at the bottom. And if you notice this, I've actually renamed the worksheet in front. Instead of sheet 3, I've named it practice data. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Because what tended to happen was when I used to work in the assessment department, we would send out data. And a lot of people would look at the data and they're like, oh, I only see the first page of the data. Where's the rest of it? So we had to kind of label it down here for them to show them that there was more data. So what you do to change the name of a tab is you go and you come down to the tab and you right click on it. So notice I right clicked on sheet 1. And one of my choices when I do that is rename. And if I click on rename, I can actually type the name of this sheet. So I have renamed this cold data. Okay. So again, how I did that, I went and I right clicked on the sheet and I clicked rename, and then I just typed in what I wanted to name it. Okay. And that kind of stopped some of the phone calls. But then I was still getting phone calls because people weren't looking at this and they were only looking at the first page. And so I'm like, okay, how can I get this information down to them so that they'll actually look at this? And the other thing that you can do with these tabs is you can color them. So if you look, and if I click on Practice Data tab, again, right click, and come up and go to Tab Color, you'll notice that I can pick whatever color I want. So I'm going to make this one red. And if you can see on your screen, you'll notice that practice data right now is in red. And when I click off of it, you'll notice that it says practice data and it is red. I'm going to make my cold data yellow. So you'll notice now that this is red and this is yellow and so on. Okay, so that's a real easy way for getting people to take a look at the data that they need down in if you have multiple sheets for them. Okay, the other thing that I want you to know is you can actually size these columns and these rows. If I come over here and I take my mouse and I move it between the letters A and B, there's a line in between those two things. And if you'll notice, my cursor changes from a white kind of plus sign to a black arrow, and then it has two arrows going opposite directions. If I click and hold and drag it to the right, notice that my column got bigger. And I can do that on C. I can make it actually smaller. And I can make this one bigger. So again, I'm going and I'm clicking on the link, the line in between the two letters. I'm clicking, I'm holding it down, and I'm dragging left or right. The same thing can be done for rows. So notice if I click in between 1 and 2, I can drag down and I can make those very large or very small. And I don't know if you've ever gotten data from someone before, but sometimes when you get data and the data is too small or the column is too small, you'll see like this little hashtag. That's trying to show you that there's data in there, but the column width is too small. So what you can do is you can come up to in between G and H and just drag it to the right and make it bigger. Now, it would be really nice if we could make this so that it would automatically just size to the right size. And you can. If I come in between G and H and I double click on the line in between G and H, notice what happens here. Ready? It sized it perfectly to the width of English Language Arts. I can also do that between 1 and 2 if I wanted to. If I clicked on between 1 and 2, double clicked, notice now that that height of that row is perfectly the correct size. Now, it would be nice if I could do this all in one, instead of having to click on each single one. I want to size it all the right way in one click or in one action. And you can do that. What you do is you need to select all of your data. Now, this is a very important shortcut for a lot of people. Instead of having to drag to the right and down to select the data, there's a little box up above 1 and to the left of A. If I click on that box, notice what it does. It selected all of my data. So let me do that again here. If I come up to this box and I click that little box, it will select all of my data. Then if I double click in between A and B, it will size all of my columns to the right size. If I want to size all of my rows to the correct size, I just double click in between 1 and 2. So if I double click there, notice it made my size correct all the way around for the entire document. Okay. There are times where you need more than 3 worksheets. So we're going to show you how to add another worksheet to this worksheet. To do that, you have a couple of choices. You can either come up here and go Insert and then Sheet, or if you come down to the bottom, there's a little plus sign right here. If you click on that plus sign, it will add a new sheet to your data. There we go. And notice that it put it in here in between practice data and cold data. Well, there are times where I want to keep the order practice data, cold data, then I want data, then I want sheet 1. So I have to move it. And if I click on it, notice a little black triangle shows up, and I can drag it to the right. And if I do that, notice now my triangle is after data. If I let it go, it actually moves sheet 1 to the end. Okay. And if I wanted to move it in between there, I can just click and drag it to the left. If I needed to add another sheet, I could click on this again. It would add another sheet. I could keep clicking on it, and it would add a whole bunch of them. Now, let's say I want to delete that sheet. I made one too many. I can either right-click on this, and I can choose Delete, or I can come up to the top, and I can say Delete Sheet. And if I say Delete Sheet, it will be gone. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of some of these that I added. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my practice data. Okay. Now, one of the things that's nice about Excel is there's times where you may want to put a header above this data, and you want it to kind of, so what I need to do is I need to insert a row above this data. So to do that, I click on the row that I want, and notice what I did there. I went over and I clicked on number 1. When I did that, that selected the entire row. I can also do that with columns. If I want to select the entire column, I can click on the letter and it will select the entire column down. So in this case, I want to select row 1. I'm going to click on row 1. I'm going to come up and I'm going to say Insert. And notice now I have Insert Cell, Insert Sheet Row, and also Insert Sheet. So in this case, I want to do Insert Sheet Row. And what it does is it moves my data down. And now I have a brand new row where I have A1, B1, and so on, and it moved my data down. Now, I want to put a header in this information. and I want to call it Maple Creek Parent Data. So I type that, but you'll notice okay, it's there, but I want to get it so that it's centered over all of this information. It's just, it's there. Maybe if I want, I could maybe move it there, but that doesn't really center it that much. I want to get it so that it's centered over all of my data. So what I can do is I can do something which is called merge and center. So I choose the cells that I want. And what I'm doing here is I clicked in A1, I held the mouse down, and I dragged to the right so that I am selecting these cells. I want to come up here and I want to click on Merge and Center. If I click on this, watch what happens to my cells. Notice now the lines in between A and B and C and D are gone. This is actually now one big cell. All the other ones are little. This one is one big one. So now when I type in data, I say Maple Creek Parent Data, and I hit enter. Notice now it's centered my data over my data. It centered it between A and H, and it put it directly over my data. Now I can make this bigger by coming over here and making it 24 font. I could put a box around this to kind of show you that it's one big box. I could do a number of different things. If I drag this down, notice that it is at the bottom of my cell. Well, let's go back and kind of review something that I showed earlier with alignment. I can align it to the left. Oops, I have to click on my data. I can align it to the left. I can align it to the right. I can align it to the center. But above that, I can align it top, bottom, or middle. So if I click on this one right here, this will align it to the top. If I click on this one right here, it will align it to the bottom. Or if I click on this one, it will align it right in the middle. So notice now I actually have this data centered left and right, and I have it centered up and down. And that's exactly where I want my data to be so that I have this information. Okay. Let's look at some, let me delete this. So I went up there and I selected the row and I clicked delete row. So now I'm back to where I am. And one of the nice things about Excel is that it has what is called a fill series feature. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to start typing and then drag the information down, and it will fill down for you. So I'm going into I'm going down into I1. Actually, I'm going to go into J1, and I'm going to type 1. And notice when I typed 1 there, I can, when I choose this, there's this little tiny square in the bottom right-hand corner. If I take my mouse and I mouse over it, notice it changed from a white plus sign to a black plus sign. If I click on that and drag it down, notice what that did. It copied what was in J1 and it put it in every single spot where I dragged it down to. Then it also has this little autofill option box that opens up. And right now it's set to copy cell. What I can do is I can change it to fill series. And if I do fill series, watch what happens. It basically numbers them 1 through 15. Now I can do this with a lot of different other things. For example, I can do this with the days of the week. Here's Monday. If I drag it down, notice it went through the days of the week. I can do it by months if I want. And this time I'm going to do abbreviation, January. And if I drag it down, notice it does the abbreviation for it. If I had typed the entire word January, it would have typed February, March, April, and so on. And what's cool about Excel is this actually works going left and right. So if I take Monday here and I drag it to the right, notice that it put my information in the cells going left and right. So it's a very quick way of making a calendar if you need it, or adding numbers to people if you need a count or something like that. So that's called fill series. And what you do on that is you click on the cell that you want, you go to the bottom right-hand corner, you click on it and you hold, and you either drag it left or right or down or up. And then if you do that, notice that it started with February and went down, and it was a flash fill series. If I just wanted the same thing in each one, I could click on copy cell, and it would just copy that cell all the way down. Okay. Karina, are there any questions or anything that I need to address at this time?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Then we'll continue to move on. Formulas. Okay, let me get rid of this here first. Formulas. Formulas are a little bit tricky in Excel. There's a lot of different formulas that will work. But one of the first ones that most people use is what's called sum, which will total up a group of information. So I'm going to come down here to G 831, and I'm going to start a formula. So to start a formula, what you do is you have to start it always with an equal sign. So I typed equal in that box, and if I go to the formula tab, it will show you all kinds of formulas that are available. And Excel, a lot of people are afraid of Excel because it's all math. It really isn't. I use Excel a lot for cleaning up text, and I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes. But it will also do math stuff too. So I'm going to sum a couple of data points here. So I'm going to type equals sum, S-U-M, and notice as I was typing that, Excel is trying to tell me, oh, here are all the formulas that start with SU. There's substitute, subtotal, sum, SUMIF, and these all have different functions that you do. But basically, they work the same way. You type sum, and then you start with a parenthesis. And if you notice, Excel is trying to say, okay, give me the first number, comma, the second number, and so on. So instead of having to type the two numbers that I want to add up, which are 362 and 381, what I actually do is I click on the cell that I want to add. So I want to add 362, and notice what that did. It put the address of where that number is, and then I can do comma, And now it's asking me for the second number that I want to add up, and I want to do 381. And notice that one is coming in with a different color to show me that it is a different cell than the first one that I chose. I have to do a close parenthesis, and then when I hit enter, it will add those two numbers together. So if you add these two numbers, you get 743. And what I want to show you is that's what is called a dynamic formula. And dynamic means is if my data changes, my sum is going to change. So for example, if I change this to 205, watch what happens to my 743. It changed it and recalculated my new sum. So it's a dynamic formula, and if you look at it again, it's just sum of these two cells. Okay? Now, another thing that's very popular is the average. So I want to get the average of all of these cells that are above where I'm at right now. So I'm going to hit equals, and I'm going to type average, and I'm going to average the entire column of G. Well, to do this, instead of having to type each one over and over and over again, I can come here and I can click on this and drag up. There's other ways to do this, but I can drag up and I can go to where it's starting. And this is probably hard for you to see right now, but my formula says G2 colon G829. That colon means that it is going to it is going to average all of the numbers between G2 and G829. So I'm going to put a close parenthesis here, and I'm going to hit enter. And if you notice, it did, and it averaged that entire column for me, and the average is 361.1437198. Now, I used to be a math teacher, so I like a lot of digits after my decimal point, but not everybody does. So if you come back up here to home, you'll notice that there is a number format here. And you can change the format to this. You can make it a percent. You can make it money if it was dealing with money. Now, that's not what this is. You can put a comma in there. But if you notice over here, you can increase the decimal or you can decrease the decimal. Okay, I'm on the Home tab in the number area. And if I click decrease the decimal, notice that it will round and drop the decimals. So maybe I only want it to go out to the tenths place. So now it's 361.1. Maybe for some reason I want it to go further out. I can increase the decimal, and you get the idea. Okay. Now, one of the things that I want to show you, and this is a very powerful tool in Excel also, is that you can actually take this formula and move it, and Excel is smart enough to go, oh, you're trying to do the same thing in the next column over. So I have a couple of choices here. I can copy this, which I tend to use a lot of shortcuts. The shortcut for copy is Control-C, and then paste, it's Control-V as in victory. Or I can use my little tool of dragging over to the right and it copying the cell. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to show you this again. I'm going to come to my formula. I'm going to come down to the bottom right corner. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag it to the right. And what it's doing is it's copying this formula over to this column. And if I click on it, it's probably hard to see, but up at the top here, you'll notice that it says average H2 colon H829. When I was over here, it was average G2 colon G829. Okay, so it was smart enough to know, oh, you're just copying this formula over, but you want to look at this data over here. So that's a start of a formula. We'll show you maybe some other formulas in just a minute, but I really want to get to filtering. So we're going to move on to filtering. Okay. Now, when you're given a big list of data like this, a lot of times when I was a teacher, I would be asked, okay, I need to figure out who are all the kids that scored 328 on the English Language Arts exam. Well, there's a number of different ways to do this in Excel. One of the ways is to sit here and scroll down and find the 328. Oh, there's one. Okay, I could come down and I could scroll down and find another one. Okay, but that takes too long. I can come up here and I can use a find, and I could actually find the ones, and it would highlight all of them. But again, I just want a list of everybody. So there's a great function called filter, and I use this all the time. And if you can understand this one, this is one that I think will save your a lot of time in the job that you do. What I do is I highlight row 1. So notice I came over here and I clicked on 1. I come up to sort and filter, and I choose filter. And you're like, okay, well, what happened here? Well, if you look at this, English Language Arts, it put this little kind of down arrow triangle for English Language Arts. It actually has it for first name, last name, and so on. But what I can do is I can click on the down arrow in English Language Arts, and it will open up a new box for me, and it will show me all of the different choices that are in that column. So if I unselect all of them, and then I come down to 328, and only select 328, and I hit OK, notice this just gives me the students that scored 328 on the English Language Arts score. And if you look at my row numbers, notice it's 1, 59, 73, 135. All the other ones are hidden. It's only showing me the data for 328. And what I really like about filters is not only can you just have one filter, you can have multiple filters set for this. So let's say we were going to give an award to all of the students that scored 328 on the English Language Art exam and got 355 on the math test. Well, you'll notice here I have 328. Here's one that's 355. Here's 328, and here's another one that's 310. I want to get rid of the ones that are 310. Well, if I come over to mathematics and click on the down arrow, notice I can then set my mathematics filter to 355. So now if I hit OK, it is showing me just the students that scored 328 on the English Language Arts exam and 355 on the math test. That's called the filter. And you can turn it on and off by clicking on Select All, or you can come up here to filter and clearing it or just turning it off. Very, very powerful tool. I'm going to do another one here, which is also kind of a cool little feature, still a filter. Let's say we needed to know all of the kids that lived on Cole Avenue. Okay, so again, I could come down here and I could look up, here's one, and so on. But if I use my filter, I can come here to filter. And instead of looking through all of these and trying to find Cole Avenue, up here's one, what I can use is something called a text filter. And if I come over here to the text filter, if I come over and I say, okay, it contains, and I say it contains Cole, C-O-L-E, and I hit OK. Notice now it has filtered and it is giving me just the people that live on Cole Avenue. I can highlight all of this information. I can copy, Control C, and then I could come over here and I could paste that into this worksheet. And notice now I have just my people that live on Cole. But what's also nice about this information is let's say I get word that not only, here, let me turn off this filter. Not only do I need to know all of the students that live on Cole Avenue, but I also want to know the ones that live on, let's say, Utah Avenue also. So I can come here and I can go into filter and I can do a text filter like I did before, and I say contains and I type Cole. Now, just a word of warning, I'm typing that it says contains Cole. This is going to give me data for Cole Avenue, Cole Street, Cole Boulevard, whatever. If it contains Cole, it's gonna return it to me. Okay. But notice I can also change it and also add a second filter, and I could say contains, and I don't remember which one I said. I think it was Utah, right? I hope. I don't know. Let's say we say I want to know all the kids that were on Cole or Utah. So notice I can do Cole, and then I have and Utah. Now, a common mistake on this is if I hit OK here. This is logic. And so it's trying to tell me who are the kids that live on Cole and Utah. So it would have to be Cole and Utah. And if I do this, notice it doesn't return anything because I don't want and. I want to change this to an or statement. I want the kids that are on Cole or on Utah Street. So now if I change that to or and I hit OK, notice now my data, I have kids that are on Utah, and then I also have kids that are on Cole. Very, very powerful tool, and it's called filtering. Okay. Another, so let me go again, turn off the filter here. Another good thing to know about or a common thing to do in Excel is sorting your data. And one of the things that I've seen as a mistake that a lot of people do in Excel is when they start sorting their data, they'll come up here and they'll select it all, and they'll come up to sort. Well, actually what they'll do is they'll say, okay, I want this data sorted by last name. And they'll click on last name here, and they'll come up and they'll hit sort. And they'll say sort it A to Z. And it's actually trying to tell you not to do this, but if I click sort here, notice that it only sorted my last name column. So I actually changed the last name of my first student, who used to be A.S. Emmerich. Now it's A.S. Abu. So I don't want to do that. I want to change this so that when I select all of the data and I come to sort, I can sort A to Z, and notice now it did it by first name. Well, maybe I don't want to sort it by first name. I want to sort it by last name. So I hit Control Z to back out of that. And what I can do is I can do what's called a custom sort. And if I click custom sort here, it actually lets me add different levels to this. So first off, it will say if you have headers or not. So let me actually, hold on a second. Let me choose this again. And let me go to custom sort. Notice if I uncheck this, my data has headers. And I went and I sorted this. It would actually sort my header in my data. So somewhere in the L's, I would get last name. Okay, I don't want that. So I want to choose that it has headers. And now you notice that it is only showing the data below my headers. So now I have to decide, how do I want to sort my data? First thing I want to do is I probably want to sort it by last name. Okay, well, what happens if there's two Edmondsons? How do I want to sort that? Well, I can add another level, and I can say sort it by first name. So Chris Edmondson would come before David Edmondson. Let's say there was a tie and I want to sort it by address. Okay, I can put as many levels as I want here, and I can choose to order it either A to Z or highest to lowest if it's a number, or lowest to highest. It doesn't matter. If I hit OK here, notice that it will sort my data, and now it has sorted it by alphabetical, by last name, and any ties, it is doing the first name. So, for example, we have two ALAVE, and there's CH, and there's ME. And again, it sorted it alphabetically. So that's the sort function. Okay. Now, another thing that I want to show you that comes in handy is called find and replace. And so I'm gonna insert a column in here, and I'm going to come up here. I'm going to do insert column, and I kind of showed you this before. And I want to type middle name here. So I'm going to add a column that has middle name. And you'll notice that, again, my size is not correct. So one of the first things I showed you was to click in between B and C and size it so that you can see it. And what's weird is that every single student in this data has a middle name of D. So I'm going to type D here, and I'm going to fill it down to all of the information below. Now, I have a choice. I showed you this before, where you can click on the little box in the bottom right-hand corner and drag down, and it will copy the cell down. But I want to show you maybe a little bit quicker way. Oops. Let me select this and get out of it. Okay, so if I click D here, and I just wanted to go down. If I double click on this corner, watch what happens. It filled it all for me all the way down, and I didn't have to drag it. So that's kind of a nice little feature. I'm gonna make it in the middle here. And I have information where now all of the kids have a middle name of D. Well, I just found out that I was wrong. They don't have a middle name of D. They have a middle name of R. Well, I could do the same thing. I could type R here and go down. Or I can show you a function that's called find and replace. So I'm going to click on this column. And again, I'm clicking on B. I'm going to come up to find. And notice one of my things is replace here. If I click replace, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to replace D with R. Okay. Now, what I have to be careful of is if I say replace all, and the way that I have selected this, notice there's a couple of D's in middle name. Watch what happens if I say replace all. Okay, it said it replaced 830, but notice my middle name changed from middle name to middle name. Okay, so maybe not the best way to do it. Let's see if I can get out of this. Let's see, close. There we go. So what I can do is I can just select the data that I want to change, and I don't pick my top column, and then do find replace, change D to R, replace all, and then it would replace it. Notice I have only chosen the middle name column. If I if I selected the entire worksheet and said replace D with R, every place that there was a D, it would replace it with the letter R. And so, be very careful in using that function. Okay. Couple other things that I want to show you. This is called freeze pane, and this is nice because if you look at my data, if I scroll down on my data here, you'll notice that my headers disappear when I do this. Well, it would be nice if I could just keep my headers there, and then when I scroll up and down, my data would still be there. And you can. What you can do is you can click on row 1, you click on the tab that says View, and then go to Freeze Pane. And you'll notice that you have some choices here. You have Freeze Pane, Freeze Top Row, Freeze First Column. Well, in this case, I want to freeze the top row. If I freeze the top row and scroll down, notice now my headers stay there as my data, as I'm scrolling down the data. And again, you can do this with columns, and you can do it with rows. To unfreeze it, I basically come back to View, and I click on Unfreeze Pane, and now when I scroll down, my data is unfrozen, and so notice my headers don't go there. Okay. All right. We're kind of in the home stretch. Any questions, Karina?
No questions so far.
No questions so far. Okay.
You're doing a great job.
All right. Well, let me show you a couple of other things that are kind of slick in Excel. And this is more when it comes along the lines of printing. So I have this data, and I have a lot of data that, if I scroll down, you can see it. And if I go to the tab that's called Page Layout, there are settings that I can set here. I tend to, when I deal with Excel, I tend to make what are called narrow margins. So that'll maximize the amount of data that I have on a sheet. So that's one thing I do. The other thing I do is if there's a lot of data that is going left and right, sometimes it's better to change my orientation from portrait to landscape. And that'll give me more data to be able to be seen left and right than up and down. There's also times where I give a lot of data to our administration. And there are times where the data, there's so much data that it's actually better for me to to print it either on a legal or even larger pieces of paper so that they can see all of it. If I scroll over here, there are times where maybe I only want to show, a certain area. Maybe I don't want to show the math scores. I could highlight this and just say set the print area, and then what would happen is it would only print the area that I have chosen, okay? It won't print anything else. So I'm going to come back here and clear that. You can look at page breaks and you can control the page breaks. But what I want to show you on this is if I come here and I hit print, it will give me a print preview. And you'll notice that, and it may be hard for you to see this, but if you notice, it's actually 32 pages of data. And I have first name, middle name, last name, address, city, state, zip, but it's missing my math score. It's missing it's also missing my English and language scores. And if I click through this, notice my data, the headers are gone. And then when I finally get to page 18, oh, there's my math scores and my English scores. Well, there's times where you want all of the data on one thing, on one sheet. So what you can do is you can go in here and you can do scaling. And you'll notice where I have scaling, I can fit sheet on one piece of paper. Well, if I do that, watch this. Boom, okay, there's all of my data on one sheet of paper, okay? I don't know about you, I can't see that. So that's probably not a best solution. But here's another one, fit all columns on one page. Okay, here's all my columns. Notice now I've gone down from 32 pages to 13 pages, okay? But if I go to page 2, notice my headers are gone. I want my headers to print on that. So what I can do is I can go back to the top here and notice it says print titles. If I click on print title, I can say rows to repeat at the top, and I can choose row 1. And now when I choose print preview, notice on page 1, my headers are there. And also now if I go to page 2, my headers are there, and page 3, and so on and so on. Okay, so it's just a nice little way of controlling what you're printing and what you're sharing with people. Okay. Now, we're running a little bit out of time, so I want to show you some places where you can obviously go and get some help. I'm a big fan of YouTube, okay? And on YouTube, there are all kinds of, there are all kinds, if I'm not blocked, there are all kinds of actually, I'm logged in. What happened? There are all kinds of videos that are available to you on YouTube. And so a lot of times people are like, hey, Chris, can you make a video of how you did X, Y, and Z? Well, let's say you don't remember how to do Excel filtering. You can type it in here, and there are hundreds of thousands of Excel, tutorials of videos of how to do exactly what I just showed you. So I really think it's a great tool to start and start off with Excel. Okay. Let's see, where's my Excel? Another nice tool that I go and get is, if you're doing a lot of Excel, is a product called ASAP Utilities. And what this does is it has some scripts that are already written for you. For example, this one, color nth row. And so what this is going to do is very quickly, it is going to color every other row gray so that it makes it easier to take a look at. So I think those are really good tools. It's called asaputilities.com. Just Google it. If you want to put it in the chat, we can do it. It's asap-utilities.com. Okay. It looks like my time is up, so I'm going to stop there. I will stay around a little bit longer on the Zoom if anybody has questions. If you want to unmute and just ask me, I'd be happy to answer anything that you have. Again, thank you for coming. We may do a little bit more advanced one here in the coming weeks. But again, thank you for coming and thank you for attending. And hopefully this was worth your time.